Hi there. You know what I hate more than video game CEOs that ruin my favorite childhood games because they are greedy, gluttonous beasts, and then they disappear off the face of the internet without facing any consequences? I hate video game companies that push out slop every year while they have a live service gem of a game just being neglected in the background. If it wasn't obvious from the title of the video, we're talking about For Honor. For Honor is a third-person hero-based fighting game. It was released February 13th, 2017, and was developed by Ubisoft, I'm sorry, I think I misread that last part. I meant to say Ubislop. For Honor is one of those games that I genuinely feel like has so much untapped potential strictly due to the fact that it's in the hands of an evil-ass corporation. Anybody even remotely knowledgeable in history is probably looking at this game and thinking that this looks stupid. In that case, you were correct. Knights, samurai, and Vikings did not even exist around the same time periods, let alone the same continent or area. They were on different parts of the planet around the different time periods. So yes, you are correct in that assessment, dear viewer. None of these factions have existed, and conceptually, this makes no sense. But have you considered that it'd be cool as fuck? Of course, you're going to need a compelling story and good setting to explain why these factions are even interacting with each other, let alone fighting. So, why don't we talk about the story?
Hold on, I got a whiz. You want to take a whiz break? Anyone want to take a whiz break?
For real? You serious?
Yeah, seriously. What about you, guy with the beat on me who needs a reload?
Damn it! How did you?
I learned to count when I was 3. Do you need to piss or what?
Our story starts off with a fertile and resource-rich land being devastated by an event known as the Cataclysm. This event would cause the lands to be destroyed and desolate. This would lead the factions already inhabiting the land to turn on each other. These factions being the Knights, Vikings, and Samurai, and then later on the Wuland and Outlanders, but they come into the fold way down the line, so we'll just talk about that later. This is the general premise and setting of For Honor. There is a campaign for this game as well that I recommend you play for yourself. It follows different heroes from each of the 3 factions that all have their reasons for fighting one another. It's a surprisingly good campaign that talks about some pretty heavy topics and touches on the subjects of duty and, well, honor. On top of that, there's lore for the heroes and events themselves. These were recently added with this current season with the release of the new hero, Akire. I'm not going to go too deep with the lore because there's a lot to talk about with not only the heroes but also the events and the seasons, so I'm going to recommend Raven Knight, who can explain the lore in the game a lot better than I can. He makes amazing content, he talks about the heroes, he even creates his own stories, which I feel is very impressive. He's a good watch. I heavily recommend him to anybody who wants to know about the seasonal events, the characters, and the motivations behind what the hell is going on within the current For Honor lore and story. That basically wraps up the main premise and story of For Honor. Now moving on to the juicy part of the video, the gameplay.
Shit. Oh shit, Jay. You gotta shoot him.
But why is it red?
Jay, you gotta move!
Quick little PSA. A lot of the footage in the background you're going to see is me playing against bots and Breach and Dominion, due to the fact that the new hero just came out and she has a very, very unfun gimmick where if you're facing more than one of her, which she's new, so you're going to be playing against more than just one of her, most likely, she can essentially put you in an uninteractive cutscene where your only option is to fucking die, and I personally don't want to experience that. I want to have a good time, and I want to actually have some type of interactive and entertaining gameplay in the background for my viewers. So yeah, if you're wondering why a lot of the people I'm facing are AI, that's the reason. Anyway, back to the video. I feel like the 2 major things talked about with For Honor, besides the fact that the game was co-created by Malik himself, is the heroes and the gameplay. The game has 39 playable heroes, all with unique playstyles and feats. There are a lot of heroes that I can't go too in depth with in this video alone, so I'll just tell you about the class of heroes and a brief synopsis about them. There are 5 factions in this game, those being the Knights, Vikings, Samurai, Wuland, and Outlanders. Each faction has a Vanguard, who's the jack of all trades, master of none type of class, a very safe character archetype with good damage, moderate health, very beginner friendly is the way I would describe them. Then you have the Assassins. They are quick, they're stealthy, and they thrive in duels, but they have less health and don't perform the best in team fights. Heavies are the biggest and the slowest of the 4 classes, but what they lack in speed they make up for in damage and mix-up potential. They really do excel at team fights, and they also excel well at holding objectives for objective-based modes. And finally, we have the Hybrid class. The Hybrid class is an amalgam of 2 or more classes within the roster fused into one. They're pretty good at everything, and they have a lot of mix-up potential. But tied with the heroes and the classes of For Honor are feats. Feats are essentially just passive and active upgrades you get as you progressively play in your matches that amplify your gameplay. Some feats are tied to some heroes, and some are usually just universally shared amongst them as well. Some of the feats kind of range from minuscule, gimmicky, kind of no point in using it over another, to does the gameplay team even exist? There are many, many feats in this game, too many feats for me to cover alone in this video, so I just suggest that you go play the game and you mix and match and experiment with them to see what works best for your playstyle or kit. I truly do believe that the feats system just goes to amplify the gameplay of For Honor. Speaking of gameplay, the gameplay for Honor is some of the most perfect and well-designed gameplay I've seen in quite some time, but it also is heavily flawed due to the balance and design of the base game itself. I'm going to get into that at the end of the video, but I want to strictly just focus on the gameplay. The gameplay can be split into two categories, offense and defense. So I'm going to start with offense first. You'll first lock onto your opponent, and when locking onto your opponent, the two things you need to keep an eye on are your health and your stamina, because without your health, you die. Without your stamina, your death just encroaches faster. Keep in mind, any attack, grab, throw, or dodge you perform will cost stamina, so try to keep in mind the attacks or moves you want to perform while you're fighting your opponent or opponents. The second thing you'll notice is that you have directional indicators on your screen, those being left, right, and up. These are the directions you can block and attack from. From this stance, you'll be able to throw light attacks, heavy attacks, unblockable attacks, dodge attacks, deflects, crushing counters, bash attacks, guard breaks, and feint. And each hero has their own speeds, damage, and stamina costs for each of these attacks that they perform. So it's kind of crucial to understand your specific hero's moves or inputs to perform when facing certain opponents. I heavily do recommend you check out the content creators in the For Honor scene. There are so many YouTubers who play this game, both popular and niche, who talk about the characters and the way to optimize their movesense and damage. Some of the big ones that come to my mind that I recommend you check out are Freeze, Nova King, and Havoc. They make great content, very informational, from day one releases to current day updates and patches where they test out heroes, buffs, and nerfs, and they kind of just give their review and honest thoughts on the changes they received. Moving on though to your defensive options. Your defensive options consist of blocking, parrying, dodging, rolling, and counter guard breaking. Another thing to mention with the defense for Honor is that some heroes, typically heavies and hybrids, have all guard stances. All guard stances just being a stance they're able to go in where they're able to block damage from all three directions. You can counter this stance in two ways though, those being unblockable attacks or unblockable bash attacks and guard breaks. Especially guard breaks. Guard breaks are like the Achilles heel to all guard stance. Essentially, if you guard break someone in all guard stance, they can't counter guard break back, giving you the opportunity to deal a devastating blow or to throw your opponent to a wall to maximize your damage potential. On the topic of punishing attacks, you can also throw out attacks and cancel them or feint them to bait out an attack from your opponent so you can punish your enemy. Again, not the most in-depth mechanics guide you'll be receiving from a YouTuber like myself. That's why I recommend you go check out other content creators. I know some people are going to point out that there is a training mode for this game, but I'm going to be real with you, that training mode is hot ass. It blows donkey dick. You are much better off watching other content creators explain the combat to you than letting the training mode guide you, because holy hell, it is bad. You can't talk about gameplay without talking about the game modes, and For Honor has 7 if you're not including the campaign. Technically like 5, now that I think about it. Duel and Brawl are essentially just small little arenas where players get to play semi-competitively. Breach is just used as a glorified XP farm. Tribute's not played because of how bad the snowball mechanic can be on either side for each team, and on top of that it just doesn't give a lot of rewards, which sadly sucks because Tribute is actually a very interesting mode, and Dominion's just playing like deathmatch these days, so pick your poison. Truth be told, it doesn't really matter if the game mode you want to play is popular or not or has a high player activity. Just play whatever you want to play, but if you are aiming to get more XP for a hero or farm armor or more renown, I heavily recommend you just play Breach and just kind of play against AI and just farm that for a couple hours if you are really dead set on gaining reputation for a hero or just trying to get armor and the such. A key thing to keep in mind though, at least with the team-based modes, is team play and coordination. Not only on your side, but the opposing side as well. There'll be many points throughout your playtime where you'll be ganking or be the gankee. Ganking just meaning jumping in this case. A crucial aspect of this though is the revenge system. Revenge is an ability gained when one is attacked by more than one opponent. The more you are attacked or the attacks you block, the more revenge is gained. Once full, you will be given a prompt to activate it. When activated, you gain the following buffs: more damage, infinite stamina, an instant 120 HP temporary shield, hyper armor on all your attacks, guard break immunity, and enhanced attacks. It's crucial not only to know how to use revenge, but also when not to feed it to enemies within teamfights with your allies. It's an integral mechanic to master as soon as possible, and in some matches can literally make or break games. Another gameplay element that I feel personally goes unnoticed and unspoken about is the execution system. Executions are somewhat integral to the gameplay outside of them being ways to dismember and humiliate your opponent. The executions range from, haha, this is so silly, to, oh my god, this is genuinely psychotic. To perform an execution, you'll need to finish off your opponent with a heavy attack. Once you've finished off your opponent with said heavy attack, you'll be given a prompt to execute them. If you don't execute them, after a couple seconds they'll just fall over and die, and then they'll also have the ability to be revived by any of their allies who are on the map still. But if you do end up executing your opponent, you'll receive a decent chunk of health and instant stamina gain. After performing your execution, the enemy cannot be revived by any of their allies, and on top of that, their respawn timer is affected heavily. There is a pretty obvious and glaring weakness with performing executions, that being the fact that if you are performing them, it's a static animation. You are literally sitting in the same spot, meaning that an enemy can just come over and interrupt it, essentially preventing you from getting whatever stamina you are going to gain from performing said execution and health. Some players get around this fact by performing shorter executions for less health, but the longer the execution you perform, the more health you gain. So it's kind of like pick your poison. Do you want to get a shorter execution that gives you less health, or would you rather take the chance to perform a longer execution to receive more but have a chance of being interrupted? It honestly kind of sort of doesn't matter. A lot of it just depends on what type of scenario you're in the first place. If you're already in a situation where you can't even perform an execution, it doesn't really even matter if it's quick or long. So honestly, just like use whatever execution you want. Just be aware of your surroundings and be, aware of the map and where the enemies are and how many enemies are dead or who's been executed. There are a lot of silly and cool executions within For Honor. Especially some of the older characters, they have a lot of, executions because they're older, they've been in the game longer. But that kind of leads into one of the main issues that not only do I have a problem with For Honor, but also other people I've seen within the community and content creators as well. So without further ado, I think it's time we talk about the overview of this game.
I've got a Glock in my Rari. 17 shots, I'm like, yeah, she's fine. Wonder when she'll be mine. She walked past, I press rewind. See that ass one more time. I got this song.
Quick little PSA here. This is the overview segment of the video. If you wanted to skip ahead to see my rating and recommendations, feel inclined to do so. I'm going to do a little minor yap about some of the positive and negatives of the game. Anyway, moving on. Positives. Positive number 1. Gameplay. Gameplay feel. I feel like the gameplay for Honor is probably its biggest selling point. The gameplay is wholly unique to this game alone. You're not really going to find this anywhere else. Besides like Chivalry, but even then, For Honor has a certain feel, a certain allure to it. Coinciding with the gameplay, I feel like another positive would be character movesets. The character movesets are really unique, even if some of the animations kind of overlap or they look similar to another hero. Each hero has a defined playstyle, a defined speed and agility that fits that character so well, and I feel like Ubisoft nailed that pretty much spot on. And since we're talking about them, character designs, character aesthetics, they really did their homework with most of these heroes. A lot of the designs are definitely exaggerated, like the height of the hero or the armor look or the weapon size. Like a lot of that is exaggerated to sell the power fantasy of them. But overall, it's pretty good, and the dialogue and the voice lines they have are actually translatable. And I've been harping on it all video. The map design, the aesthetic, the setting is all beautiful. It's all wonderful. You can tell there's a passion behind this team who develops For Honor. They really, really want to sell you on this war setting. And I like how each map has its own lore, and there's always something going on or little hidden Easter eggs. I think that's cool. And also free events. They give out free events pretty frequently, especially for a paid game that's a live service. You don't really see companies give out free events with free skins and cosmetics for your heroes without it being behind a $50 paywall. Apex Legends. Oh, sorry, there's something in my throat. Jokes aside though, it's a good thing. I think it's a positive. I think more games should do that. I think more games, especially paid games, should be giving you free stuff because you already kind of paid for the game. So, that's a good positive. And that's it for the positives. Yeah, relatively short list. You would feel that as someone who's very passionate about this game, I'd have a lot of positive things to say about it. Truth be told, that's not the case. I inherently think there are a lot more negatives with this game, so fucking spoiler alert there if you haven't already skipped to the rating. But I'm gonna just speed through these negatives. Pretty prominent negative, hitboxes are horrible. This game has egregious bugs even in the current year of 2026 that I'm making this video if you're watching. This game also has horrible balance philosophy. Some heroes have outright just power crept each other, and there are just better versions of heroes already in the roster, and they've done nothing to bring the other hero up to pace with the current one, or have changed them in a way where you'd even want to pick the older one over the new one. Some feats are bugged, some feats are overtuned. We've done nothing to revive old modes that have low player activity and refuse to even acknowledge they exist. Microtransactions are egregiously priced for things that should just not be above $5 in my opinion. Similar to the microtransactions part, purchasing heroes sometimes doesn't even go through, so when you buy and spend your real life money on a hero release that are just not even playable on launch, egregious content droughts that literally make it pointless to play the game for more than like a day or so. New hero releases not having like any content to them, whether that's executions or armor. Indicators not properly working with the animations, leading to many instances where the indicator flashes red after you've been hit. Reward and loot system just being flawed and not really having any incentive to grind for things because the RNG in this game is egregious. The pricing for items with renown, whether that's executions, armor, emotes, or effects, just being like way too high in my opinion, like unrealistically high for the amount you gain per match. The XP grind to rep heroes is very tedious and boring. Ubisoft also having a monopoly on the fighting system of this game, so inherently no other game can have this type of fighting system, so it allows people to just keep coming back to this game. And the final kind of major one being that the community is toxic as shit, which I also feel like comes with the territory of it being a fighting game. I don't think there's ever been a fighting game in history that's had a nice, friendly, wholesome chud community. Not to say that like everyone who plays this game is like malicious, or like, you know, every content creator who plays this game is like hateful or toxic. A lot of people in this community, or a lot of content creators, are pretty like chill. You know, they have a good time, but there is a decent sized portion of this community that is hyper competitive, hyper just like BM, just trying to ruin your fucking day, usually for no reason. And you know, it just sucks. It fucking sucks, man. And truth be told, a lot of these things could be fixed if Ubisoft just took a little initiative. But again, Ubisoft doesn't care, and they'd rather just take the money from this game and dedicate all resources to Rainbow Six Siege, which, to each their own. And that's not to say that Rainbow Six Siege is doing any better than For Honor at this point with the resources and money it gains every year, because that game has its own problems that I'm not willing to tackle in this video. So with that being said, my final rating for For Honor will be a solid 6 out of 10. And the 6 here is doing a lot of fucking carrying, because most of those points are strictly the fighting system. And as someone who has played the game for years, it really does pain me to say that, because I do recommend this game to anyone who's even interested in remotely in ancient history and ancient warriors. But how far does that go? Like, as someone who's been playing for years, I've seen these issues over and over and over again not get tackled, and it's just kind of draining. I see the potential for Honor. I truly do. This game has so much, but Ubisoft refuses to capitalize on it. And as someone who's been playing for years, and many others, a lot of us don't give a fuck anymore. A lot of us just kind of get on to play the new hero, look at the new fashion and executions every week, and then we just leave. So if you were to ask me, hey, do you recommend For Honor? I would have to ask you 2 questions. The first one being, do you like fighting games? And the second one being, do you like ancient history where warriors from different backgrounds fight? And if you say no to both of those, then this game isn't for you. The fun factor is essentially non-existent at the moment, unless like you're a new player experiencing it for the first time, and other than that, nothing's really bringing you back besides the characters. That's For Honor, a game with untapped potential, but unfortunately in the hands of a greedy ass company. With that concludes the video. Thank you for making it this far, by the way. Drop a comment on why you like For Honor, or why you hate it, how you fell in love with the game, if you even still play to this day, or why you stopped playing in general. I would really love to hear what you guys have to think about the game and the video as well. I would love to see some productive conversations go on in the comments. And with that being said, thank you again for watching, and have a good rest of your evening. See ya!